It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Thanks for joining us, folks. I'm Sam Lesante, and welcome to The Sam Lesante Show. Also, welcome to the Lesante household. We're trying to keep you as informed as possible in different things, and I want to thank all of our employees. I want to thank all of you who've been so kind with your emails, particularly the response to our sponsors. From that little clip that I made. I appreciate it very much. I thought we would be able to reminisce a little bit what happened in the city of Hazleton going back to the day when Lou Barletta was elected mayor. So my guest today is former Congressman and Mayor of Hazleton, Lou Barletta. Lou, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Sam. Nice to see you in a different way.
How is the family doing? Jordan's doing okay?
Jordan, thank God, is doing well. Obviously, we need to be very careful with him, but thank God he's doing well. Prayers have been answered, and hope people will continue to keep him in their prayers.
He's in our prayers every day, Lou, believe me, as well as so many other people. How did you do with that fund drive that we had with Joe Madden?
He did great, actually. It was amazing. They raised a lot of money that will go towards helping other children and go towards research of this rare cancer that Jordan has that affects only 350 children a year. So it was a great start to Jordan's Army Foundation, and I can't thank everybody enough for everyone who helped and participated.
Well, that's great. Lou, let's go back a little bit in history here. When you became mayor of Hazleton, there were some things that were happening in the city, but most especially immigration, okay? Let's go back as to what were your thoughts then when you were mayor, and what were your thoughts on illegal, and I'm going to say illegal immigration.
Sure. As you know, it ended up, what happened in Hazleton was not that being the intention, ended up being a national story and issue that is still today being debated on a national level. But what was happening in Hazleton when I took over, we had a huge financial deficit, and we were able to turn it around in a couple of years. But during that time, we saw a large growth in our city. Our population grew by 50%. But we also started to notice some big city issues: absentee landlords, overcrowding of apartments. More serious violent crimes were happening, and then we began to see a trend in some of the crimes that we were investigating, that there were people that were in the city who were there illegally, and not knowing why. Hazleton's 2,000 miles away from the nearest southern border. It was really hard to understand what to do with that and how to deal with it. But our population grew by 50%, but our tax base, our tax revenue stayed the same, which is an unbelievable statistic when you realize 50% more people, but not an extra penny to provide services. We realized there was an underground workforce in the city, and we had a serious problem with illegal immigration for whatever reason. I went down to Washington in December 2005. That was during the Bush administration. I met with the Department of Justice. I told them the problems that we were having, and we had an illegal immigration problem. I needed help. They were great. They brought in experts to talk to me, and at the end of the day, they gave me a coffee mug, a pat on the back, sent me home. Not 1 ounce of help from Washington. And then shortly after that, we had the Derek Kishline murder in the city by people who were in the country illegally, and that I realized at the time I couldn't wait for Washington, because Washington wasn't there. There was nobody in the state that was willing to help me, not the governor, not a senator, nobody. I was literally on my own, so we created the first law in the country to try to stop the problem of illegal immigration, Sam, and that's the key word. It was illegal immigration, because we wanted to stand up for many immigrants who moved to Hazleton, and they were the folks who were being hurt the most by illegal immigration. And unfortunately, I found out through experience, you can't say illegal immigration, because the mainstream media leave out the word illegal, and they make your message sound like it's anti-immigrant, which is obviously the opposite. Hazleton is, I mean, we know our past history of immigrants who made Hazleton their home, and those folks were the ones being hurt the most. So that line is always crossed when people want to make you seem like you're a racist or that you don't welcome immigrants. But it was a battle that I've fought for a good part of almost my entire political career.
Lou, there are so many mixed emotions now in the city, certainly because of the coronavirus. And I want the public to know, without question, we have had more shows with HIP and the Hispanic community. You were on with Madden. We were doing everything that we possibly could to bring positive information is. Now, we do have a bad element. And hopefully we could, Mayor Cassatt and all the mayors are coping with that, trying to at least bring the city back somewhat to civility. I'm not saying that we're crazy up there, but we have some concerns. And right away, people, when you start talking about immigration and illegal immigration, as you said, you get the wacko lefties saying that we're being prejudiced, okay? And that's so untrue. But before I move on to another area here, we often hear as to why did all these illegal people, why did they choose Hazleton?
Well, again, it was experience. What we found looking backwards at the time, we couldn't understand it. I didn't know why. But Hazleton, in its proximity to New York City, was attractive to people that wanted cheaper housing. Obviously, a half double in Hazleton is a pittance of the price of an apartment in New York City, plus the ability to find jobs in some of the industrial parks. We know for a fact at the time, Cargill was a big employer at the time that attracted a lot of folks from New York City and New Jersey. And when people saw that the quality of life is better in Hazleton, to raise a family, less crime, lower cost of living, and you can find a job in the industrial park, it brought a lot of people to Hazleton, a lot of new immigrants, a new culture to us. But with that, with the good people that came to make a better life for themselves, we also saw some of the big city actors come as well. And, that became the problem. And, the national media likes to, write their story before, never let a storyline, never let the facts get in the way of a good story, right? So it was obviously Hazleton was not accepting immigrants and Latinos, which is totally false, and we know that. What wasn't accepted was big city crimes and some of the problems that we saw with illegal immigration versus those that came there to make Hazleton their new home.
What advice would you give the people that live around you in Hazleton and in the area? What advice would you give them now that we're going through this sort of crisis?
Well, the advice I have is, and they say it all, it's a cliche, but it really is the truth. We're all in this together. This isn't a time now to point fingers at anyone, because we need to protect each other. And, the alarming rate of virus of people who are testing positive in Hazleton is an example why we need to work together. And, part of the reason that happened, there are a number of factors that I believe I've been very vocal about. I thought the governor was late to the party. I've been very, very vocal on the fact that I saw Hazleton was going to be a hot spot in Pennsylvania. We had a lot of people coming back and forth from New York and New Jersey. Some who were not quarantining themselves. If you came from New York to Pennsylvania or New Jersey to Pennsylvania, you needed to make sure that you quarantined yourself for 14 days so that you did not have the virus and you couldn't spread it. Well, a lot of that wasn't happening. We had, according to Lehigh Valley Hospital's own survey, 82% of the people in Hazleton were not social distancing. And then you had the factor of people who had to make a decision: do I stay home and lose my job, or do I go to work and possibly get sick because they didn't feel that they were being protected by their employers? when you put that all together, it was clear that Hazleton was going to be a problem. I had sent out warnings to the governor, and I think they were late to the party in coming in and realizing that this was a hot spot. So, it is what it is right now. The most important thing is that we do work together. Again, we saw our good friend Connie Falvello, as you already know this story, but we realized that maybe some of the problem was a language barrier in getting the message of the CDC, the federal government's guidelines of social distancing and what to do. Maybe that message wasn't getting into the neighborhood. Attorney Falvello had a great idea. He said, why don't you call Joe Madden, see if we could get some of the Latin baseball players to do a message in Spanish and English and see if we, through social media, can get that message out throughout the community. I called Joe. He did it in a day, literally in a day. We turned around some videos, which we gave to the Pennsylvania Department of Health, called and asked if they could partner, as well as Senator Yudichak also offered to get these messages out. And I think that did play a role in beginning to get the message into the community that it was very important that we follow the guidelines.
We're hearing a lot of mixed emotions about the reporting of the coronavirus. And the fact is, are these numbers being skewed? Meaning that if someone's dying from pneumonia, they're putting it down as coronavirus. If someone's dying of the flu, they're putting it down as coronavirus. From what you hear, there's nothing that we have factual, but then again, we're wondering about when I say we, the general people that I've discussed with, wondering about how political is this becoming right now. You had told me one time, Lou, when I interviewed you, I don't know, first or second term, I said, how are things going in Washington? And you said to me, Sam, I can't even go to bed at night knowing what I know and some information that we just cannot talk about. I'm sure the President of the United States and maybe the Vice President knows a lot more of what's happening, and I'm sure he's moving in the right direction. However, that word politics comes into play, and I'd like to discuss that with you when we come back after the break. Folks, I'm talking to former Congressman Lou Barletta. He had a run for it when he was up here in Hazleton. We're all in this together, as he said. However, there are some things I think we should take a look at when we come back after this break. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks, and welcome to the Lesante household. Once again, thank you so much for all of the responses we're getting from the Sam Lesante Show. Remember, 24/7, all of our shows are on ssptv.com. Very easy to get to, and also we get them also on your smartphone. Just hit the website and you can watch the shows. I'm talking to former Congressman Lou Barletta, also former mayor of Hazleton, talking about certain things that's happening in this country. Just discussion, folks. Lou, I mentioned before we went to break now, we know the coronavirus is serious. There's no question about it, and we're not downplaying about it, no means. The fact is, are the numbers, that we're hearing, and it just seemed in the last couple days, more and more numbers are being added, and from what we hear through the grapevine or whatever, again, it's just rumor, maybe factual, I have no idea, that they're adding more to this than what meets the eye. Have you heard anything about that?
Well, probably the same stories that you've heard, whether the numbers are being skewed or not. But one of the things that bothered me, Sam, was in the very beginning, the numbers, for example, if you were from New York City, in the Hazleton, were staying in Hazleton, and were tested in Hazleton and found out to be positive and treated in Hazleton, those cases were going towards New York's numbers. And I thought that was a problem because we may not get the federal help and the federal assistance that we could be getting if those numbers were more accurate. I said for a long time that I thought New York's numbers were not going to be what they initially projected because a lot of people were leaving New York, going to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Florida, anywhere else they can. But, you know, I think, you know, hats off to Mayor Cassatt. I felt that he has been very transparent in trying to get the real numbers out to the people at Hazleton. I know we spoke very early on about how important that is to make sure people know what they're dealing with. And we had to know, not to blame anyone, but we had to know what kind of problem we're dealing with in Hazleton so that we can get the help from Harrisburg and the federal government that we needed back home.
The fact that the country now is practically in lockdown, you can't, you know, there's a lot of businesses not open, at least in the state of Pennsylvania, and people are hurting. I mean, they're really hurting. Small businesses that I know our company and a lot of companies are really hurting because no one could go out and do what they have to do. So I'm just hoping and praying, Lou, that they're not playing politics with us. You know, you were in the game, and you had said many times there are things that you knew that you just could not talk for security purposes or whatever. I'm just hoping that that's not the case.
You know, let's talk about the first part of that. I felt with the administration, with the president and the scientists told us in the beginning was true, because yes, the numbers are very far from what the seasonal flu deaths are. However, never in our life, never in the history of our country have we ever seen everybody go inside, close their doors, and just hibernate to stop the spread. We'll never know what those numbers would have been if we just continued in our daily lives as if, well, some people are going to get it like the flu, and some people
Very true.
There's a vaccine for the flu,
Yep.
and the entire country shut down. So I think the fact that, you know, the whole strategy was to flatten the curve. You know, let's have as few people die and spread this disease as we can, and the numbers will be much better. That worked. But that being said, you know, now we need to thread the needle. People cannot stay in their homes forever. It doesn't make sense for people in parts of the country. For example, I have a good friend who's the governor of South Dakota. I always say she's had an easy job. She didn't shut down South Dakota. People live 10 miles away from each other. You know, they might have had a few cases there. You didn't have to shut down totally like that. Some of the governors have gone way too far. Some of the, you know, the businesses that have closed, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand why you can fish in Pennsylvania, but you can't golf. You know, it doesn't make sense. Those businesses that can prove that they can keep people safe, follow the guidelines, but keep people employed and stay open, we need to do that.
When, you know, Trump had his concerns, I mean, they try to do whatever they can, but that's history. But now what's happening is, the longer this is going on, and the fact that there's these lockdowns and the businesses are not being open, etc., you're beginning to see ads now from the Democrats indicating that and they have people talking, doctors and people working in hospitals saying, we didn't get our test, we didn't get our ventilators, we didn't get this, we didn't get that. And here again, you could see the propaganda coming out, and they're using this as politics. That's what I meant to say when I said they're beginning to use this as politics, when in fact, if you listen and actually you see the facts, that's not the case. So it may have been someone maybe back in the beginning when there weren't tests, etc., but they explain that these tests are not easy, etc. So that's where I'm saying, Lou, is politics becoming a play in this?
Well, I don't think politics has ever stopped becoming a play since the day Donald Trump came down the escalator. I mean, let's face it, there hasn't been a day that this man has been able to go to work in a White House and have everybody working along with him. No matter what he did, he's the blame. He's the cause. He's not doing it right. Remember, when he took the bold step of stopping people from coming from China, from flights from China to the United States, and he was criticized immediately by Joe Biden. But while he was talking about that in January and in early February when that was implemented, Nancy Pelosi was still talking about impeaching him. They didn't give a hoot about the coronavirus. In fact, if you remember, she was bragging, come down to Chinatown, food's great. They have never stopped playing politics. And no matter what he does, it's going to be, he did it wrong, or he did, and American people see through that. They're tired of this. Now, there have been some governors who have worked with him, some Democrat governors who honestly put politics aside. I believe Gavin Newsom, and the president's very vocal about that, has worked well with him. Some of the governors have worked well, but there are others that simply are using this to point out that whatever Donald Trump does, somehow he didn't do it right.
Folks, I'm talking to Congressman Lou Barletta, talking about current events, what's happening in the country today. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. My guest, former Congressman Lou Barletta, former Mayor of Hazleton. Lou, continue on some of the things that we're just hoping that common sense plays a factor here, and also that we can get going back. What would be your suggestion to the governor of Pennsylvania?
Well, first of all, businesses can figure out how to do it, how to make keep people safe, still open for business. One of the problems as businesses are beginning to talk about opening again is that some of the employees are saying that I don't want to come back because I can do better getting the money from the government and the bonus versus coming back. And the governor's answer when that question came to him was, well, just pay people more money. A lot of businesses might not even have business anymore. I don't know how many are going to be able to survive this and stay open, which means that all those employees are going to lose their jobs. So we have to be strategic and smart and open where we can, but at the same time, keep the vulnerable people safe. An area like Hazleton and Luzerne County, it may take a little longer till everybody could come out and live life normally again. But in some parts of the state, they can do it, maybe now.
Remember, Lou, before this happened, we had the best economy we have ever had. We had more people working than we ever had, more Hispanics, more African Americans, more women, and the wages were going up. And that was a bad thing for Democrats. And again, these are facts. These are facts. Hence, I keep telling people, look at the political structure here and let's see what's going on. Whether it was reversed, whether it was a Democrat, Republican, or reverse Republican, Democrat, we had the best economy going, okay? So that's what I'm concerned about. Is there an underlining political thing here that is going on? I hope I'm 100% wrong. Your thoughts in closing?
Well, I'm sure there's some of the same people in Washington who could not get this president removed by impeachment and phony hoaxes that they had may see an opportunity, unfortunately, with the pandemic that has put people out of work, out of business, and many people, the economy, literally, the plug pulled out from it. I don't think it's going to work, because if there was one person alive today, Sam, that I would put in charge to get this economy back, it's the guy we have in the White House right now, Donald Trump. He did it once. Why would you not want to send him back to do it again?
Well, we'll be talking again. I wish you and the family well. I'm hoping that next time we do our interview, we'll be back on set, okay? So please give my best to everybody, and thanks for coming on the show, Lou. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sam. Stay safe.
Folks, Congressman Lou Barletta, remember 24/7 SSP TV. My email, sam@ssptv.com. We'll see you next time.